Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. My name is Rhett and Deadite. With me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
I'm Zels, also known as Zels.
And I am Felix, also known as Banahana Masashi, and I am eating delicious Indian snacks.
And today we're going to continue with the Truth in Sequence. We're on Volume 8 today.
Yes.
And let's see, not yesterday, last sermon would have been 7, which was mostly about the wheel. Today we're going to talk some stuff about Mournhold, which is the capital city, I suppose, of, well, it's not the capital city, but it is the seat of the tribunal, according to most. It's certainly where Almalexia resides.
I was going to say, it's the seat of Almalexia. Yeah. I don't know if you call it the seat of the whole tribunal.
Let's see what UESP thinks about it.
My understanding, which I'm willing to bet is wrong at this point, given all the extra lore and how things are changing.
I know, all the time, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's just what it means to live in the gray maybe. Just kind of go with the flow sometimes.
Well, UESP still believes that it is the capital city of Morrowind.
Morrowind, yeah.
The largest and oldest city in the province.
Yes.
It is located on the mainland and not on Vardenfell. And it is where Almalexia considered, I guess you could say, her throne. Apparently, it was a truly ancient city, possibly predating the Dunmer themselves, didn't know that, and was rumored to be built, yes. I knew this, over the ruins of a vast dwarven city, which is accurate, but I kind of got the impression that if anybody knew that it was on top of a dwarven city, they'd kind of forgotten. Or like hand-waved it away. And
I think as well, it was... I think as well there were Daedric ruins underneath the Dwemer stuff.
Yes.
I mean, yes, but you could also make an argument that when they being the tribunal were creating their religion and being able to use the tools of the Heart of Lorkhan, they just casually edited out the part where the city of Mournhold or Almalexia was built on top of Dwemer ruins. You could just we'll just edit that out. No worries about that.
Oh yeah.
I know some people or like some in-game sources have made the distinction between the city of Mournhold and the city of Almalexia, which is like around it and or outside of it. And so it's like, yes, Mournhold is the capital, but Almalexia city is the capital, or vice versa, depending who you want to talk to.
Oh, this is sort of like
because like how there's technically Morrowind, like all the other provinces or most of the provinces, has a king or a high king. In this case, I think it is just a king, which we saw in the like tribunal expansion of King Hlalu Helseth.
Helseth, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so they technically have a king, but it's also like there's also the temple, which is much bigger than the royal palace, which just connects the 4 quarters that we saw in the DLC. And so my understanding is that that's also part of the distinction that Mournhold itself is the capital, but of like, you know, the kind of weird, I guess you could say, co-kingdom thing that Morrowind has going on, where it technically has a king, but also has 3 ruling kings / gods. And that's kind of where, you know, it makes this for a funny gray area. But otherwise, everywhere else has like a high king of some sort, like High King of High Rock, Skyrim, Hammerfell. Where it gets a little murky is everywhere else in the south. Like I had never heard before of like, you know, a high king or queen of Somerset Isle, but we do know that they existed. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that there's like that kind of weird distinction in Morrowind between Mournhold, the city, and Almalexia city.
Yeah, and it's going to feel weird and imposed because the monarchy was very explicitly an imperial imposition by the Septums, or by Tiber Septums. So it's going to feel odd and grafted on and all the rest of it. So
that makes sense. Yeah. The whole idea of having a king for the Dunmer in the first place may have been a little bit of an adjustment.
Yeah.
I just realized, for all her vanity, Morrowind did not get remade in Almalexia's image. Sotha Sil, built a place and named it after himself, kind of, and Vivek City definitely, is named after Vivek. But Mournhold did not become, Alma's town, or, there aren't big statues of her around. She isn't, you know, represented in her city the same way that they are.
Alma Town, Almaburg.
Because she is a mother, and motherhood is its own reward.
Aww.
Yeah. You remember you're talking about Almalexia, though, right?
Yeah.
So
Hey, Becca.
I am well aware that if that lady's a mom, she is scary.
See, yeah. I mean, but of all of them,
Tiger
and
mom.
abusive.
she's just
Tiger mom.
so vain, and speaking of my ability to deny reality, I mean, I got nothing on Alma. So I just realized, like, I'm staggered that it isn't, I don't know, special somehow to her.
Yeah. Well, we're still fuzzy, right, about where Almalexia is, the location. It's mentioned on maps, but
Yeah, it's one of those gray areas that's never been fully fleshed out, which is, and did they not do that in ESO or no? Like, it's still like separate, or
it's still Mournhold in my recollection.
the ruins of old Mournhold, on which the city of Almalexia was built. So the city of Almalexia,
What year is that?
apparently sometime during Tiber Septim's rule, because apparently the construction of Almalexia city was built as a response to Tiber Septim's rising greatness. So then the entire city became known as Almalexia in her honor.
Okay.
But the historic center of the city, containing the tribunal temple, retained the name of Mournhold.
Yeah, so... Okay, so Mournhold is part of Almalexia.
So then in the Mournhold DLC for Morrowind, that Mournhold area that we're in the DLC is just that central part, not the whole city, not all
No,
of
it's
Almalexia
not.
city. Okay.
I think you're told that outright, that it's not the entire city. There's more outside of the Mournhold's walls that we don't see
it's very
3.
explicitly that this bit is quarantined, and so you can't go outside of it and all that sort of stuff.
I want to see Narcissus. God damn it! Anyway,
play ESO.
It is.
Yeah,
I know it's another reason I need to get off my ass. Like, it's installed. I just need to create an account. It's taken me years to start playing this game. Anyway, right, by the winding of the gears.
So, blessed Father of Mystery, place your oil upon my tongue, that I might tell the true tale of Mournhold. Behold the strength of untold calculation, behold the power of the mainspring everwound. Every nameless soul must confess the truth of Mournhold, for many lessons hide in its ashes. Sing now the hymn of anguish and horror, child of Set. Behold Mehrunes Dagon, sovereign of destruction. Right, he did get a piece of Mournhold, didn't he?
Yes, Mehrunes Dagon burnt it down, if I recall correctly. So.
Yeah, and there's like a statue in the main Plaza Brindisi Dorum, showing Almalexia slaying him or something like that.
And so we get a lot of Dagon, sovereign of destruction, Mehrunes Dagon, the flame tyrant, Mehrunes Dagon, father of cataclysm. Recall how he marched upon Almalexia's jewel. Do you remember how his will burned like kiln fire, and hot pitch fell from his lips? Aloft he held 4 great razors. He's got 4 arms, so, Mehrunes razor, we know this. Each sang a screeching paean to glorify him. Torrents of flame fell upon the innocent and wicked alike, shearing flesh from bone, belching forth widows and orphans in gouts of frothing screams. Yay!
And while I'm thinking about it, just to give context for this, this is the destruction of Mournhold in the final year of the first era, if I recall correctly, because it's in there's a dramatic rendering of this in 2920 in that big long novella that's in the Elder Scrolls 3.
That was an epic year.
Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
Although no wonder that year went down in history. It was like, hey, a lot's happening.
Yeah. And according to that tale, they arrived too late. Almalexia and Sotha Sil arrived too late to save the city. So any sort of valorization of kind of the fights to save Mournhold is a bit kind of meh. Yes, they did beat Mehrunes Dagon back, but they did it at the wrong time.
You know, or the 2950 is wrong and written by Imperials, or who knows.
Well, I can't remember what Karlovac Townway is. I don't think we ever see him in game, or if it ever got mentioned in
I don't think so, no.
interviews with the three writers, that unlicensed thing. But I want to say that was trying to cast him as a Breton, but I don't know.
It sounds Breton-y.
Yeah.
Do the Dreg fly and not swim? Here's the thing about that. We don't know if the Dreg look like they look now, back when Molag... Was it Molag Bal? Yeah, Molag Bal was running the show.
Yeah.
So do they fly now? Look, for all we know, there's a Dreg that they'll invent that flies, you know, like a version of it. You know, sure, why not?
I love trying to find a million different ways to pronounce that word, though.
Dreg,
dreg,
dreg.
Yeah, it's fun.
Like 90% sure it's dreg, and I'm also 100% sure that I pronounced it wrong in the audio that I did for the
I
think because we have no official source, at least that I know of.
Well, no, we
think
do. It's in ESO. They vocalize it in ESO.
Oh, yeah. Well then. See, all the more reason I need to play this goddamn game.
Yeah.
But also an earlier point about like Merwins and the Razors, what jumped into my head was him like basically doing a Billy Mays skit of like, oh, buy now, get 4 razors for the price of 1. I just had it's just like a fun little visual that popped into my head. It has nothing to do with anything else, but just like, you know, with 4 razors in hand, I was like, oh, Billy Mays would have a field day with that one. So yeah.
I was going to say,
peace.
the Flame Tyrant being a door-to-door salesman. Nah.
Yeah, they used boat salesman from Monkey Island 1. Yeah.
I could absolutely see it. Like, he's got like 4 different samples in each arm, or like, you know, 2 arms are kind of doing the presentation, and the other 2 have a clipboard where he's writing down notes or counter arguments. Like, I could see it working.
So who dares to face me, draped as I am in fire and blood, roared Dagon. The Dark Prince beat his breast, and howled long-forgotten curses. The dead burst forth from their tombs, shrieking for mercy. Geysers of black liquid sin erupted from below, flooding ruined homes with torrid lies and conspiracy, and everywhere flames and inferno that turned all souls to ash. Good times. Almalexia, Mother of Mercy, cast her eyes upon the ruins of her gem city and wept. To see such love burned and squandered turned her heart to molten brass. Our Clockwork god took note of her fury, sealing the memory away in his great mnemonic planisphere, a reminder of her love's high price. Rising from the ground like foundry smoke, the tribunes... yes?
Can I butt in there and just wonder, because we've seen kind of brass used as a sort of a thing to be kind of like heavy, weighty, kind of... Brass is sort of the base material of things, as far as I can see. Brass sort of is just associated with it's almost lead in how it's talked about. That I'm just wondering if there's I don't know, it just rings sort of alchemy bells for me in some way. It's not exactly like it's slag and a waste material. It's sort of basic and heavy and dross type stuff.
Also, things like you know, the stone that remembers that it was once water reminds me of, like, you know, metal. Like when you purify a stone to pull metal out of it, you know, it's like you melt it down and then purify the metals from it. And it just sounds like they're like everyone's. I don't know if it's the Elder Scrolls writers referencing lines in alchemy books or referencing lines in other books that were inspired by alchemy, like the philosophy of alchemy, or the metaphysics of alchemy. But like every once in a while they start to sort of get near the wavelength of like actual functional alchemy, and I start to go, oh, are they working on something? And then it never quite goes all the way through, you know.
It never quite gets there. It's infuriating because, as you say, there are these sort of hints that something might be going there.
They might be figuring some kind of like real Elder Scrolls alchemic system, like a real numerological system or something, and then they just like flirt with it, and then
So I believe people in the kink community refer to this as edging.
Well, no. What I think it is that they're being intentionally vague because they know the moment they push out an actual like system that's intended to be complete, people will just be like, well, this doesn't really work. Or they'll try to go back and hold it up against all the other mountain of text that's already been written and go, oh, wait, this doesn't hold up with previous texts. So, what's going on here? They didn't work hard enough on it, fucking lazy devs, blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff. It seems like if they were going to do, if they were going to take ESO's alchemy system and try to make the process of creating alchemy, like potions and so on, make some sort of a logical, progressive, pseudoscientific sense, they'd have to change everything so dramatically that they'd have to rebuild the entire system from the ground up, and it would lose all resemblance to the Skyrim alchemy system altogether. And I just don't think it's worth reinventing the wheel for something that's only going to impress 8 people. Probably.
It is one of my consistent pet peeves with fantasy as a whole. Alchemy is basically just used as a shorthand for magic chemistry. And it's so much more than that. There's so much more in the way of mystical stuff you can do with it.
Take Full Metal Alchemist as a great example. It's alchemy is really just fucking magic in that show, and as much as the author referenced actual alchemical theory, it's still just turned down to do things, and as much as that ruled, it wasn't quite. Because who wants to watch a fight between two alchemists? A fight between two alchemists consists of 6 days of fasting and then purification in rivers and then and then fucking watching things bubble and then nothing that they wanted to happen happens and then
But no, Full Metal Alchemist does kind of point out its own inconsistencies with how the plot works.
Oh, it does?
When?
I missed that.
The whole the whole thing of the equivalent trade and everything. There's literally a speech at the end, but you never put in the energy to make the transformation work because you're not actually doing an equivalent exchange. You are opening up a portal to this other world and milking the power of the souls that have all died in World War II to power everything you're doing, even if you're thinking it's actual science.
Yeah.
It does resolve that, but it still is what it is.
Dude, spoilers.
It's old. You should have seen it by now. It's a great series.
It's
really
beautiful.
good.
It's old for us. Not for the handful of Gen Zs that are watching this.
All right, fair. Yeah.
But both of the series are fab.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think Brotherhood's the one that's worth watching. I think the other one is yeah.
I may have missed it, but I didn't hear the call for local recording, and I just turned mine on. So if anybody else
there wasn't a call.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can write that one off.
Right. So I should start recording then. Yes.
Couldn't hurt. Is brass even an alloy in Elder Scrolls? I don't think that you can make.
So
in Skyrim, it's something you get from melting down Dwemer brass.
Yeah.
Well, there's a couple problems that I have with how it is in the Elder Scrolls, but I'll do that in a second after I actually get recording here. Okay, it looks like I've started recording. Okay, all right. Maximize this again so I can see everybody. Okay, so brass and bronze are two different metals. They both use copper. One uses zinc with copper to form the alloy. The other uses tin. I forget which one does which. That's
bronze
always
is tin. Bronze is tin.
Thank you. Here's the problem that I have with Elder Scrolls and their use of various different metals, such as malachite and orichalcum. These actually exist in real life, and most of them are derivatives of copper. Okay, James, yeah, I know, just it's a gross oversimplification, but basically forms or approximations of these exist in real life, and most of them are derived of I believe copper, and the other might be iron. And again, this is just me going purely off of what I remember seeing in museum a couple years ago. But they're very pretty, very beautiful, but the way it's put in the Elder Scrolls universe in terms of the magification of these metals doesn't really equate to how these metals are related in real life. And that's unfortunate because you could actually use that. And so as like a little Easter egg for people to find in real life of then maybe connecting certain dots in the Elder Scrolls universe. But, you know, that's never explicitly made. And I feel like that's just unfortunately a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old theory that they had way back when they were first starting on like the new version of Elder Scrolls lore, which was the idea of them having actual Elder Scrolls in in Todd Howard's basement, and they were translating them and talking to Daedra and making deals with Daedra about like, we'll tell this story, but you have to let us change some things because nobody knows what the fuck this word means, or this is impronounceable, or we have to give people hit points, otherwise the game won't work. You know, that kind of shit. And I kind of think of like, you know, the various types of ores like iron and tin and so on in the Elder Scrolls as being like that doesn't exist at all, or there's no, or it's like an earthy equivalent of the other thing, and that they just put it in to like, you know, make it more marketable, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's just a simplified system because the game isn't a metallurgy simulator.
Yeah,
I know, but still, it's like when I first started finding out more about that in real life when I was at a museum, and it's like, wait a second.
Yeah,
you're telling me this is real, like an approximation, like clearly that's what the inspiration was.
Yeah,
like, oh, it's ripped from this. But then why would they...
I would point out that orichalcum, we don't actually know what it was.
Yeah,
it's a metal that's referenced in some of Plato's writings, I think, or some ancient Greek
stuff. Wasn't it
and...
supposed to be like an ore that they got specifically from Atlantis or something?
Maybe it might. I
could be wrong
around that, but it's but orichalcum is mentioned by Plato, and we don't know what metal it actually was, if it was actually a real metal.
Yeah,
it was just, we know it's golden. That's about it.
Well, that's why, again, for me, I wonder if that was kind of like their way of talking about early brass, or more appropriately bronze, because given it's, you know, the Bronze Age, that was their idea of you know, the origin behind what would become bronze, or perhaps a somewhat mythical like super version of that. The way, for example, we're like in the modern day, the equivalent would probably be carbon fiber. It's like, oh, we just got to find a way to do like, you know, carbon nanotubes, and that's just gonna revolutionize so many things. And it's like, we're still on the quest for carbon nanotubes, even though we have like carbon fiber and we do a lot of stuff with carbon, but it's still like, you know, that mythical quest, right?
Yeah. Okay. After that, shall we get back to the
no
to the actual text?
No.
So, rising from the ground.
This is now a metallurgy cast.
Yeah. Are we casting metal?
We should.
Yeah.
I'll dust off my guitar, but all right. Rising from the ground like foundry smoke, the Tribunes confronted the Prince of Disasters. IM's voice. That's a title I haven't heard. Prince of Disasters. IM's voice screeching.
I think it ties in with Mehrunes Dagon being responsible for natural disasters in Morrowind. That's his sort of associations. He's not. It's a specific type of destruction that he's most associated with. But that's a derivation. But
IM's voice. Oh yes, I'm sorry.
You guys were saying earlier that Mehrunes Dagon is a Magnus transformed.
Yes.
So if that would make sense, natural disasters, it would be something that it'd be the world attacking the world, because he's one of the original creators, right?
Ooh. That's.
I mean, yes, but also I still love my headcanon that Magnus is actually just like Jokeren and Trinimag. Well, not exactly, but kind of like, you know, a dude from Yokota. Yeah.
Well, I like the idea of phrasing natural disasters as the earth attacking the earth, as in like the wind. You know, like tornadoes are just the wind fucking with the earth. The rain, you know, hurricanes are just rain when it's pissed. earthquakes are just the crust getting self-abusive. Yeah. Let's see.
This is storytelling. Our cameras are up.
Yeah. Are you not seeing
I don't
anything?
know. Might
I'm
be an
looking at
issue
the.
your end.
But yeah, I'm casting the right screen.
Fine. Yeah.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, refresh page. Maybe your video hasn't fixed itself. Twitch might be twitching.
Yeah, what the heck? That's
TwitchCon,
weird.
I think, is happening right now, and I think they're probably getting their servers beat up.
Fair enough.
Stupid TwitchCon.
So, I am's voice like a screeching steam whistle, and Sotha Sil like a lurching engine. That's, I'm pretty sure, a Train Wiz reference, but I'm not 100%. It's close enough.
Probably.
We stand Train Wiz.
Erem var e altadun, they cried, rending their garments and donning their killing masks. Okay. It's time to play that game we play so often here on the Selectives Lorecast, which is, what the fuck does that mean? I've never heard Erem before. Var sounds a lot like Varla. Erem Var is, hey, this is storytelling. Thanks for the tier 1 gift sub. Thank you very much. There's not, I can't think for the life of me what Erem Var might mean in the context. It sounds like, they're talking about the two of them together. So, and A Altadun is a weapon, or useful tool. But yeah, this is pretty much how it always happens here in Selectives Lorecast when we look at what's it called?
What does the Imperial Library say? Because they have a pretty thorough breakdown of.
I was looking for their Eln Effects dictionary and I can't see it in there. But I will actually go to the dictionary directly rather than just trying to search it.
I could not find it on an Imperial Library when I looked.
Did they take it down? Because I remember that was there like years ago. Definitely pre-pandemic.
It was, but
and I remember all the frustrations of people being like, "So this thing is like clearly trying to be Latin a little bit, but it doesn't quite work."
UESP does not list Erem or any word like Erem.
I think Imperial Library has added and subtracted some Eln Effects translations over the years, because there have been things that I looked for that weren't there before but are now, and then things that like this that I thought that I remembered that I can't.
Kids, is why you need to download, save, and archive everything. Which is why you need terabytes of space.
Yeah.
Like, not even joking. Like,
nope.
Terabyte hard drive was one of the best things I ever invested in. So many photos of, like, old like college days, high school trips when I was living overseas. All that stuff just gets ported over there. Good stuff.
Yeah. Let's hang on. Erem var I Altadun. So it's something is a weapon, or so. Yeah, and so they're doing something to produce a weapon. In what this is. I don't know whether they're saying it at the same time. It's they cried. It's not something that one of them is doing particularly. Yeah. So this is, this is sort of one of those big anime moments of where they just both shout something, point their fingers, and stuff happens.
Yeah, pretty much. It's I am drew her bright hope's fire and skipped over the flames like a river stone. With a mighty scream, she plunged the blade deep into Dagon's breast and turned it like a jailer's key. That's a cool image.
Ooh.
Yeah. Scorching blood spewed out of the wound, scalding her hands and face. As she fell, the divine metronome, guess who that is, chiseled a thought rune of infinite angles. Do you remember how the veins of tin, copper, and orichalc erupted from the depths to break our mother's fall? Through his will alone, mighty Set wound the veins into god bronze whips and lashed the prince pitilessly. Dagon hissed and tumbled backward. His otherworldly flesh fell like chaff before the scythe. Oh my goodness. Alas, a Sarmacina sum something ghoul thing emerged from every chunk. What the fuck is this word?
Sarmasona Sasum. Summer says,
It's easy
USP
for you to say.
feels that this is a reference to Ruin Arcs or Mehrunes Dagon's Daedra.
I don't remember seeing that as a title, though.
Yeah.
No. I don't think
He has
that
like
they would have tried to.
Haverfrills. I don't remember anything that was SE like that.
No.
Armisonasum.
It feels like it's from the same sort of lexicon as Anuvanasi. It's got the same sort of breaks and everything kind of slung together. So I'm just
Tuttle word salad? Was that?
Yeah. I mean that's the ultimate source of it.
Mhm.
It's a word salad because the lemon turtle wanted a word salad. But I can't see that there's anything else. So whether this is a specific term that the Clockwork Apostles have developed or something like that, because we don't see, because the closest language I can think of for this is that it's something like Ashlander names in how it feels.
That's true.
But I can't make a link to that because the Ashlander names are Babylonian in some way.
Right.
And that's that sort of derivation. But I don't know whether we can really connect the Clockwork City with Ashlanders in any meaningful sense.
I did not realize that those names were derived from Babylonian. Your treasure, James. Thank you.
I'm pretty sure that's where it comes from. It's that area
like
and time of the world.
The names of the Ashlander tribes and the Daedric temples in Morrowind are all inspired by ancient Sumerian and Babylonian names.
There we go. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, the problem is they're inspired and not direct, and they don't actually directly translate to anything. So,
I know, but at the same time, like for me, it was pretty obvious when I had heard of Shurbanipal, the like ancient emperor of Sumer, and then I'm like, oh hey, there's a temple here called Adurnashapal, and I'm like, I wonder if that's in any way a word salad meant to copy ancient Sumer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also why like I immediately clogged, like everyone's like, oh, the orcs, yeah. They're inspired by like, Japan, because like look at the armor. I'm like, that's fucking cute. They're actually inspired by the Afghans, if anything, particularly the Pashtuns.
Draylen, does that article specifically mention that word?
Ooh.
I'm curious.
Okay.
Let me find out.
Can you find that article?
Wait, okay. Which article you mean?
No, it doesn't. I fucking do it. Yeah. USP seems to think that's where it's from, but
Dralian has given us the link.
Dralian
is being both as
Awesome,
cooperative
Dre,
as usual in pretty much all ways.
Stupid age verification.
They grew from.
I am ancient. Fuck
some
off.
mages and historians believe they grew from Dagon's actual flesh, an unforeseen result of Almalexi's vicious attack during the Battle of Mournhold. So there's that, but there's no like explanation of what the fuck kind of word that is.
Yeah, which is a pain. Yeah.
I will say I do remember fighting Rune Arcs, and they have some very cool animation. It was a very well thought out. There's actually a couple of boss type style creatures in ESO that have amazing animations, like glorious stuff, and I do think that's it's another like aspect of the ESO development team that deserves a lot of recognition.
Yeah,
Babylonian
there's a lot
beard.
of pieces in that team.
Yes.
Yeah.
The air Atronach things of Meridia's, that with all the swords, those are just gorgeous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A multitude of the creatures gathered around Iam, fiery tar oozing from their mouths and open sores. They groaned and retched, speaking only Dagon's name as they fell upon her. The warden hissed thrice, took up her blessed sword, and smote the beasts by the score. She severed head from neck and arm from shoulder, cleaving sin from virtue and shouting old oaths of banishing. Do you remember how the beasts fell on her that red day? You must recall the howls of madness, how Dagon foamed and snarled beneath the lash of Sotha Sil. Behold, cried the divine metronome as he smashed the prince to splinters. Behold the wrath of lost Ald Sotha. No death at my hands, false son of a false father. False son of a false father. This is a reference to Lorcan, one assumes.
Why would Dagon be a son to Lorcan?
I'm guessing because
Yeah.
the Daedra are supposed to be Lorcanic.
Yeah.
And
Well, if
well-
Dagon was Magnus, then he would be, but he's not Magnus anymore, so he's false son. Who was Magnus the son of?
Yeah.
Was Magnus wasn't the son of Lorcan though, right?
No.
No.
Magnus
and Lorcan are not friends.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
Magnus
But, I
tore a
mean-
big old fuck you hole in the sky because he did not like Lorcan.
No, but back in the day, before they were creating the world, when they were at Ada, before that rift happened, Magnus is Anuic, Lorcan is Patamaic, but I can't remember who Magnus came from.
I don't think it's ever explicitly said.
Yeah, I think he's just like one of
Sysis,
the
that's interesting.
like one of the sort of first spirits to emerge.
false father could be Sithis Padme, meaning they don't exist. Yeah. Very good.
Well, also, I would like to propose that people think of it in a little broader strokes in terms of Mehrunes Dagon filling the void of like change in a way, like destructive change. The way a lot of people would say, a forest fire allows for new growth to emerge in the forest. But that means you still have to have the forest fire, which is dangerous. It destroys a good chunk of the forest. Destroys, especially if there are homes, settlements, towns, cities nearby, greatly affects and displaces people. Same with wildlife. But ultimately has its own purpose and allows for rejuvenation, which thus, in theory anyway, when it's managed correctly, allows for greater diversity and health of the forest. And so that could kind of be another way of looking at Mehrunes Dagon as a son or a false son of Lorcan. Because if Lorcan is just about capital C change as a concept, as opposed to Dagon's more vindictive change of destruction, if that makes sense. And so it's like, sure, you're changing things, but are you really? Are you just maybe destroying shit? Like there could also be that angle to it.
Well, Mankar Camoran would say that the change is leading to a better thing. So
but Mankar Cameron is the narcissistic little elf. So
yeah.
And he's
also evil to his core, but
he's got an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we get some more Elnofex. Care Padame Vi Altadun. Altadun is almost always preceded by A. I would suggest that Vi is the opposite of A. I think
it's
it
not,
should be
as opposed to is.
Well, I personally think that the opposite of A is DAE or day, as in
yes, Adra and Daedra.
Adra and Daedra,
right?
Yeah,
right,
R and R not. So, but I've never seen DAE used in that context, so maybe that doesn't actually hold up in the language. Don't think. Hold on. Let me Google.
Yeah.
No. If I'm looking through UASP's Elnofex list and I don't see DAE as an individual word.
No.
A and V are flipped.
Oh, and N and U.
In what sense?
Huh? A and V are flipped. Well, yeah, but it's AE, not AIE.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
the storytelling is just flinging letters around to try and relate.
No, I don't think so.
I think. Yeah.
So
as opposed to A and D being positive and negative, A and V being positive and negative.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Adra and Daedra thing kind of, but that is not Elnofex though. That's
no, but it is.
What is that, Aldmeri?
It's based on.
It's Aldmeris.
It's Aldmeris, which is I think the first deviation of Elnofex. Yeah. So it's the closest you're going to get.
Yeah.
Although, you could be right. Maybe that's just not maybe that doesn't pulled up on purpose. Caer Padhome by Altadun in the context of this sentence, false son of a false father, etc., sounds to me like Caer Padhome by Altadun probably might mean something like your father Padhome is not a useful tool, is not a weapon.
Something like that, yeah.
That's my gut reaction to what this is.
Yeah.
I don't have a good Caer does not show up anywhere either. So as a matter of fact, it shows up in the list in UESP's Eldnifex list, but the definition is unknown.
Unknown.
Yeah, they don't know what it means either.
Of course. To throw my two
That
cents
might be
or my
relevant.
two
Yeah,
septums,
storytelling.
rather,
Mhm.
into the ring. Oh wait, what did they say? Let me open up.
What is a father but an old idea that might be irrelevant now? Yeah,
So-
I think the gist of that message of that Eldnifex is supposed to be, your father is not, or the sons of that father of Padome are not powerful or something like that. Which is interesting because I think if any race would identify themselves as being directly, of a Daedric lineage, it would be, the Dunmer, but who knows?
Contextually, what that could also mean, that Caer Padome via Altadun, with everything, no death in my hands, false son of a false father. It could be VA could mean my weapon.
The Padome works for
we've
us,
never
maybe?
seen any translations of possessives in Eldnifex ever.
Yeah.
I know,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm just saying it's a possibility.
It's
Behold
absolutely
the
a
wrath of
possibility.
lost old Sotha. Yeah. No death at my hands. It could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that too.
Like, again, we don't know, but I just want to put that out there as that is a possibility.
That's true, and the tribunal did reject Azura. Good point, Baka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to clarify for them as don't know, the lost Ald Sotha, Ald Sotha was where Sotha Sil came from, and Mehrunes Dagon burnt it to the ground. Sotha Sil was the only survivor, and was apparently saved by Vivek, if I remember the story correctly. But that's just the context there for the reasoning of the wrath of Ald Sotha. For those of you that were wondering about that, it's relatively simple compared to the rest of it. But
so even then, at the end, the Prince of Destruction did not relent. With the last of his 4 great arms, Dagon dragged the last of his 4 great razors across the Watchmaker's jaw. Tasting the blood on his tongue, our Father of Mysteries whispered the final chrononymic death word, and Dagon exploded throughout all time. The earth bones quaked, and the all axle shook. From this word of sundering, truth took root. We've done chrononymics before, I'm pretty sure.
We have talked about it, yes. The chrononymic will. Yeah.
Mehrunes' ruin slithered between the cracks of Nirn and Oblivion, shrieking curses like a petulant child. The mainspring Everwound tightened his brass-wrought fist and slammed the gap shut. Another small step towards Tamriel final. A new Vanassi. So ends the true account of Mournhold's fall. Remember this tale always. In Morrowind, if I recall correctly, Almalexia is credited almost entirely with the defense of Mournhold.
Yes.
There's a big old statue commemorating the fight.
Yeah.
But again, this is written by a disciple of Sotha Sil, so that's not the story we're going to get. Instead, Sotha Sil shows up and helps Almalexia and is totally the Captain America hero here, and punches him in the jaw, and the wind picks his hair up and makes him look cool. And 2920 places Sotha Sil there too. Yeah, but
they both are. But...
Yeah, but if you ask Almalexia, you get a different story. Is all I'm saying.
You get no unbiased accounts of that battle.
Yeah, right. What really? She has
That's a note that can be applied to real life media literacy, kids.
Yep.
Pay attention.
Mhm.
So, volume 9, anyone?
Yep.
Keep moving.
Yes.
Uh,
let's
I
go.
mean, we could.
Yeah, the mainspring Everwound values craft above all things. That makes sense. She who shapes and assembles, he who conceives and creates, these are the true children of the Clockwork God. Do you think Sotha Sil's communist? Should the workers own the rights of the means of production?
He's not communist.
no.
He's Marxist-Leninist.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And this is also about sort of claiming childhood, sonship, descent, whatever terms you want to use, just purely on the basis of similarity, which is something you see in quite a few texts. I mean, there's there's bits of the Bible that do that. So it's kind of like the sons of good or sons of a particular prophet are just because they are like that person, therefore they are descended from. It's a way of that the Hebrew talks about it, and that's sort of been picked up because the King James Bible is an influence on English.
Well,
addition
also,
to that,
yeah.
addition to that, one also has to think about the context in which the first Bible was written in the wake of the fall of the Roman Empire, because the Romans themselves took adoption very seriously. If some Roman senator or like equestrian family adopted you, it was like, oh, that is like that's not, oh, like, yeah, you're their son, but genetically not really. It's like, no, like
No,
it
that's
is
it.
now like official in law. That is your son, daughter, whoever. Therefore, that is, you descend from Caesar, even though genetically it's like, yeah, probably not. But yeah.
Yeah. No, well, there are different ways of doing that. Like the whole adoption into sonship through Christ in the New Testament is like that, and it functions quite like that. But the stuff that I'm thinking of and that springs to mind for me is the stuff from the Old Testament, which is quite a bit older. And so the idea of kind of like the sons of the prophets and that sort of thing. It's a lot more sort of, there's no formal process. It's just you are like that person, therefore you are
It's mantling in a way.
a son of this. It's not the son of. That's part of why Christ's claims was shocking. He claimed the son, and there is quite a difference there as to what that meant to a first century Jewish audience. But claiming a relation purely on the basis of similarity is something that happens in a lot of places. So, and it's also a way of claiming influence by a thing. It's just like, oh, you do the thing I do, therefore you're linked to me. It's
It's brotherhood. It's a covenant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Your
man,
labors.
just imagine trying to explain the modern world to a Jew from the first century AD.
Yeah.
Just like, oh man.
We're all living so terribly right now.
Yeah.
Your labors need not whir and hiss like the sublime clockworks of Sotha Sil. The brush, the auger, the tongs, the needle, each may honor the Father of Mysteries, so long as they speak his truth. And what is his truth, child of Set? Perfection only? No. Here are the words in sequence. Simple precision is naught but the shadow of virtue. Even a faithless smith may fashion the blade with the keenest edge. The perfect sphere, the clearest glass, the truest angle, all fall short of his favor. Only through the purest incongruities and greatest doubts do we earn his blessing. You must think with the threefolded mind. You must gaze upon the unsequence.
Okay, fucking calm down there, Celebrimbor.
Well, yeah. Yes. Is it a bit like, what's it? Is it? What's it? I want to say wabi sabi.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Kitsuge is what you're thinking.
Okay.
Wabi sabi embraces
no,
imperfection.
wabi sabi is where there's a flaw in it. Yeah,
I'm not saying you're more right than I am, but
Kitsuge is when something is broken and you put it back together
and you
again
mend
with
it.
gold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. Oh God, that's good. You get the most gorgeous stuff out of that.
Yeah.
So
it also sort of pointing on the whole, going back to the whole idea of doubts again. That we've seen that in one of the previous sermons, and the talks about doubts are the little blasphemies that lead to greater truth and that sort of thing.
Critical rationalism is what Bacchus suggests.
Yeah, so you can try to poke things into your ideas.
Yes.
But it's also involving the idea of kind of reason and logic to arrive at a conclusion that you knew anyway, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's that you will arrive at the right idea of truth so long as it's the truth to Sotha Sil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if it isn't, then you done fucked up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's my way or the highway.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No mortal may grasp the unsequence fully. We see the edges only, the liminal truths. For some, the unsequence brings despair. To look upon it with a child's bewilderment. But for the precious few, the nameless explorers, this thin ray of understanding may serve as the bridge of infinite curve, the walking wheel.
The walking wheel, as opposed to the rolling wheel.
The bridge of infinite curve. I'm thinking bridge is being used here because it's an arc. But I'm not 100% sold on that because a bridge spans 2 points. But then the idea of the bridge of the infinite curve means that it curves infinitely and never reaches the ending.
So how do you...
Parabolic Kalpa, baby!
Yeah, a little bit.
How do you span the infinity then? You can't.
Parabolic Kalpa.
You can't.
Yeah.
Well, no, even the parabolic Kalpa stops.
Yes.
So...
Until it comes back to the point where it starts
I'm thinking of... Yeah, right. No, the parabolic Kalpa can't stop because parabolic curves ascend infinitely. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Once you plug the equation in, it just works, and you can calculate any point on an infinite scale.
Mm-hmm.
You're welcome. I'm sometimes accidentally a genius.
The walking wheel reminds me too much of the walking way that I can't see past it. Someone else who hasn't been doing what I've been doing for the past decade is going to have to help me out on that.
Well, the bridge of infinite time, I'm
the what?
What? Okay, I'm bridge of infinite curve. Sorry.
I'm cutting you off, James.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That kind of doesn't work. I was going to think bridge of the infinite curve. Mm-hmm. I'm just sort of thinking, is that a way to sort of span between things? And as you're saying with the Kalpa, is it a way to get from one realm to another, from one skin to another? Is kind of what I'm getting to this at. The idea of kind of moving from one part of the Arabis to another, or from one portion of the Kalpic cycle to another, those sorts of motions. It's a way of, and the walking ways are the ways to walk at strange angles and to muck around with the cycle in that sort of a way.
Yeah.
And so the walking wheel is just the mechanized and mathematicalized way of phrasing the same thing potentially. I don't know whether I'm reaching, but it's just the way it feels to me is that there's language in there that sounds like transcendence in sort of a vaguely Redguardy sense.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you on that. But why I started saying is it could be another way of referring to the idea of the wheel that walks could be a weird roundabout reference to the Godhead or Amaranth, where you become the dreamer and thus, the herald of the new wheel, basically. That's another thing that came into my mind. But of course, like the first thing in my mind was walking wheel. Don't you mean walking way, you idiot who wrote this? I get it. That's the immediate pull, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, let's actually stop and think about this for a few seconds. And I thought, okay, a wheel can't walk. It rolls, but the idea is that it moves around. But then, like we said, the wheel turns upon itself. So then what's the other way that they're trying to talk about in terms of motion, movement, individuality, control that relates to that? I'm kind of like, the Godhead ? I don't know.
Yeah, I know, right? The walking wheel's got portents. There's a lot of different ways that I can go on that. It's one of those.
It's Optimus Prime after he transforms.
I don't know.
Instead of transform and roll out, it's roll out and transform.
Yeah. Know this, Ash Child, only the intrepid mind may walk this path. For you see, the nameless soul is the tightrope walker that strides in circles only.
Yeah, that's the wheel. Like,
Yeah. The walking wheel, as in you're walking on the wheel? Is that what you're
didn't
thinking?
we talk
Like,
about
you're-
this before?
Yeah.
That was like a
you're-
spinning record, and you have to, when you're walking on the edge, you have to walk really, really fast to stand in place. But when you're closer to the center,
But you
you're
go
walking
slower and
So I think maybe the walking wheel is going back to that.
yeah, I think you
walking
might be
at
right.
strange angles, baby.
So yeah, a walker that strides in circles only is somebody who's
Yeah, and you've also got, and again, you've also got that sort of idea of mastery going on in that case, because you've got to be move. If you are kind of moving like a wheel, you've got to be moving like it as slowly as it is in the center and as fast as it is at the edge. So you've got those sorts of parallels.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to hold two things in tension, which is mastery. But
below and aside waits the gaping maw of Sheogorath's lie. Ahead and above waits Tamriel final, a Nuvenasi.
Ooh.
Below and aside, so beneath and to the side of the wheel.
I think we have a bingo.
No, that's a Google link.
Oh, that's a Google link. Okay.
Oh, shucks. Quick, someone mention Young real quick. Work it in there.
Give me a minute. I'm sure it'll happen.
We've had an hour.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Below and aside waits the gaping maw of Sheogorath's lie.
So when we were talking before about it being a spinning record, it really is a record. It's thin.
Yeah.
And right below that and above it and beside is the abyss.
Ahead
Also,
and above waits Tamriel
it's
final.
Discworld.
Or the Sithis-shaped hole, which was where mine went.
Well, that's what I was thinking
exactly
too.
what I was thinking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I hear your cries, child of Set. How does one walk the wheel, you ask? Here lies... So, well, he just fucking answered us right there. Just if we just read one more fucking paragraph down, we would have...
Hey.
We enjoy the smell of our own farts here.
This is what happens when you don't prep,
lady.
is you make a fool out of yourself. How does one walk a wheel? Here lies a nameless truth. Just as no wrench fits all bolts, no walk fits all souls. For the sculptor, it may mean an angle inverted or a form transposed, an abandonment of the named resemblance, and an embrace of the abstract. For the scholar of maths, it could require half-mad theorems, rooms of cubic numbers and functions only imagined. For the inventor, it may demand a tool without any known use, or an answer machine that prints only questions. Craft perfected and use obscure, this is the surest path to Tamriel final and Nuvenasi. So, I applaud this. This is like a whole volume where nothing really gets answered.
Hell yeah, we love it.
I think it's also that last line that just sort of struck me as a nod to Thelemic love, craft perfected and use obscure. So you're doing things, but you don't know what for, because the what for doesn't matter.
Right. Just the doing of the things. Which I have to say would have been a much better way to phrase that.
That's why we're here, to figure this shit out.
The problem with this is that it's basically saying, don't worry about making something absolutely perfect. Just make it and have faith that that it will align with the truth if it contains the imperfections that are that align with Sotha Sil's vision of truth. But you have no way of knowing what that vision of truth is. So in a way, you're right. This is like thelemetic truth in the respect that you are, or love, which is that you are trying to meet the will of God without knowing exactly what the will of God is. And the best way to do that, according to thelemic love, is to empty your mind of all desire and just enjoy the process. And it's a very Bob Ross way of painting. You just get up there and you start painting, and you don't think too hard about what you're doing. You just go with wherever things take you, and there are no accidents. There are only happy there are only happy accidents and no mistakes, and and you just figure things out which is a way that I've been a method I've been using while I'm painting my miniatures, and I go with that flow for about maybe 10 minutes, and then I get frustrated and go back and clean up all my mistakes because I can't do that shit.
Well, I guess that's why it's for some people and
Yeah,
others,
and not for others.
so much, because there have been times where I've kind of been in that of just like, well, what do I want to do? I like for example, drawing with my little sisters sometimes. We all get together, and then like whether it's, you know, pencils, paint, pen, something, you know, to draw, color. It's like, okay, what do I want to do? And I don't know. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it, let's just start and see what happens. And then like, yeah, there are times where like what I produce is like, oh, I fucking hate this. I'm just okay, it's in the trash. They insist on saving. I'm like, okay, great, just keep it out of like sight because I will burn it. But then other times it results in like, you know, I'm actually pretty proud of this. This actually turned out half decently. And other times I'm like, this turned out amazing. But I always get something at the end of a result. And very rarely is it something where I just absolutely hate it. That's definitely in like the, you know, 10% of the time when that happens. The rest is like, oh, you know what? I'm actually like not too displeased with this, to like, oh, I enjoy it, to like, damn, I actually busted out something really good here just by going with that. You know what? Just start drawing, painting, scribbling, scratching, see what happens. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. It's kind of interesting, maybe not, but it's something.
Felix in chat is pointing out something very good, which is that good science doesn't really have a goal. You start with a hypothesis, and then you test, and whatever your results are, those are your results, and then you adjust accordingly. You don't, if you do science with the goal of creating something or getting a specific result, you're going to taint the test, and you'll end up with, you know, a bad test. And then he quotes Richard Feynman, which is always a good way to get on my good side, which is science is a lot like sex. There's a practical reason to do it, and that's not why we do it. Yeah, which is a great quote, very very fine one.
This is storytelling pointed out earlier that the line "faithless Smith," it's hard to not see the Dwemer in that.
Yeah,
and it feels like a lot of this to me is about the difference between surrender and will in terms of crafting. So the Dwemer were very ego oriented, and they had a particular vision and a will that they were enforcing, and everything was exactly perfect. And I think part of what this is that if as long as you empty your mind and surrender your will to Sotha Sil, that even if what you make is flawed, you can still trust that it's part of the design. It belongs to that, and it's not your will, your ego, the way it is with Dwemer, which I guess, you know, there's a lot of comparisons between the Clockwork way and the Dwemer way, and so maybe our buddy here, Morvayn, is making that distinction.
I suppose this is that this philosophy of Sotha Sil's does align with thelemetic love and what I'm sort of used to talking about a lot. But I guess maybe it's because I've been studying it for so long that just makes a lot more sense to me to phrase it in the, you know, Crowley-esque language.
Yeah.
All Sotha Sil has to do is cut the fugu pufferfish the right way to not die. Yeah. What's the right way? Hey, you know,
it only took a million tries, but yeah.
So now I'm thinking about Hitman 2. Or Hitman Mission. Yeah, the fugu fish. Yeah. Let's leave 10 for the next one.
Yes.
And we've only got 3 left. Ooh. So maybe we do an extra long one next time.
Well, I mean, this one was still
it's only an hour. Yeah, we did pretty good.
Well, and like the thing is, like, each of these two were a little more, I shouldn't say direct or manageable, but it's just like, we didn't have to parse as much as, say, for example, like obviously the first one we started was like, okay, here's like all the context we need to keep in mind, and here's all the other things we then have to rehash from previous conversations or subjects that we've tackled. And then the rest is like, yeah, like you all know about this stuff at this point, right? By the time we're getting to, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9. So, you know, it's like, okay. And then, as you said earlier, Chris, this one was kind of like, yeah, we still don't really know what exactly this is talking about. Here's our, you know, couple of best guesses and some context, and that's about it. And sometimes that's all you can do. Because Because the only people who know are God Howard and the circle of confidants he like encircles himself with. So yeah, that's about it. Until I achieve my ultimate dream of locking Todd Howard in a basement somewhere and coercing him to let me write something for the Elder Scrolls universe. This is and like getting information out of him. This is, the best we've got and the best we can do.
Well, we did pretty good today. Folks, we'll try and do another one in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to make it for that one like I was for this one. I know I've missed the past few.
Yeah, well,
Let me tell you in the post chat how wild life has been.
Okay. All right, so everybody, bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.